Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new Nancy Drew analysis video. Today's video is brought to you by the patrons over at Mystique Manor and by all the official fellow detective channel members. If you too would like to support the channel and gain access to exclusive features, check out patreon.com/wizardkitten to become a patron, or click join next to the subscribe button to become an official fellow detective, junior detective, or senior detective. With a current total of 34 games in the Nancy Drew PC game series, it's not an exaggeration to say that Nancy Drew has a pretty well-developed universe at this point. Throughout the series, there are many common themes, characters, and items that fans have come to expect. Whether you're new to the series or a longtime fan, exploring and understanding the lore of Nancy's universe can really add a new level of depth and appreciation to the games. So today, I'm going to bring you along on a Nancy Drew lore deep dive, exploring all the recurring elements of the games that you need to know to be a mega fan. This video will be exploring the breadth of the series and may include plot spoilers. You have been warned. Let's start simple with candy. The most beloved candy of the Nancy Drew universe is the Cocoa Kringle chocolate bar. Wherever Nancy goes, if there's a chance of finding candy, then there's a very good chance that she'll find a Cocoa Kringle chocolate bar. The Cocoa Kringle made its first appearance in the 6th game of the series, Secret of the Scarlet Hand. Nancy can find a Cocoa Kringle in Sunny's old desk drawer, and the Cocoa Kringle mascot even provides a clue for Sunny's disk password, a testament to the popularity of this snack. Following Secret of the Scarlet Hand, Cocoa Kringles will continue to appear in dozens of later Nancy Drew games, frequently sold in both local and international gift shops or found in impressive personal stashes, such as Renee Amon's personal stash in Legend of the Crystal Skull. Importantly, this is also the first time Nancy can actually consume this beloved treat. Just don't eat too many. The Cocoa Kringle's origin goes back even a few games earlier than Secret of the Scarlet Hand, however, because if you look closely, you'll see that the Cocoa Kringle is manufactured by Wickford. The late Ezra Wickford was Dexter Egan's adopted father in the 4th Nancy Drew game, Treasure in the Royal Tower, and the original owner of Wickford Castle. In the Nancy Drew universe, the eccentric Ezra Wickford invented chocolate milk in 1920, so it only makes sense that he would expand his empire to also include chocolate candy bars. The story doesn't end there, though, because in the 22nd game of the series, Trail of the Twister, we see that the Wickford Company has expanded its candy offerings. In his store, Pa sells a wide array of these new Wickford candy products, including such candies as Licky Loo Lollipops, Cud Smackers, Utter Pops, and even Moon Chunk Cheese. The Wickford Company continues innovating, because in the 27th game of the series, The Deadly Device, we see even more delicious candy offerings, including a dark chocolate Cocoa Kringle. Presumably, since Ezra Wickford himself is long gone at this point, the Wickford Company continues to be run by Christy Lane, Wickford's great niece, and Dexter Egan. So we have them to thank for the Nancy Drew universe's most beloved and most consistent treat. Another common theme in the Nancy Drew series comes in the form of technology and machine manufacturing. You know him, you love him, the original Crowmeister. Once again, Crowmeister was first seen in the Nancy Drew series in the 6th game, Secret of the Scarlet Hand. In the Beach Hill lab, Nancy can use a Spectro X analyzer, manufactured by none other than Crowmeister Industries. This being a rather modern invention, you might think that Crowmeister is a thoroughly modern company, but au contraire. The earliest known product created and sold by Crowmeister are Camille's dolls from the 13th game in the series, Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. The receipt for one of her dolls lists the year as 1880, indicating that the Crowmeister name in business sense has been around for over 100 years. Crowmeister's name can also be found in other historical locations, including the well in Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake, dated 1924, and the Crowmeister Crystal Company in Secret of the Old Clock, dated 1930. Following Secret of the Scarlet Hand, Crowmeister products appear in almost every Nancy Drew game, and in an exceedingly wide array of forms. Crowmeister literally seems to have a business for every possible thing you can imagine, including meteorology equipment. Which brings us back to the 22nd game of the series, Trail of the Twister, when Crowmeister himself hires Nancy Drew to go undercover with the Canute storm chasing team to figure out why so many of Crowmeister's products seem to be malfunctioning, something that rarely happens to a Crowmeister product. Considering that the Crowmeister name has been around since 1880, it's safe to assume that the Crowmeister who hired us for this case, P.G. Crowmeister, is not the original Crowmeister. He could, however, be a son of Crowmeister, as he's roughly the age of his good friend Prudence Rutherford, who we know to be on the elderly side. After solving the mystery in Trail of the Twister and clearing Crowmeister's good name, he thanks us by sending us on an all-expenses-paid trip to Japan to stay in a traditional ryokan. Considering the danger Nancy encounters on this trip, it was perhaps not the best way to thank her, but then again, Nancy does love a good mystery, so I doubt she was too salty about it. While Crowmeister has a pretty strong monopoly on tech, manufacturing, and business in the Nancy Drew universe, a solid competitor starts to emerge in the 27th game in the series, The Deadly Device. In this game, we see the beginnings of the proliferation of Jovic Tech, a line of products invented by brilliant scientist Nico Jovic. Unfortunately, Nancy spends the game attempting to solve Nico's murder, so it's unclear who continued to produce Jovic technology. My sincere hope is that the scientists at the Technology of Tomorrow Today lab decided to continue producing and selling Nico's inventions in his name as a way of honoring his legacy, which could certainly be the case. After The Deadly Device, Jovic Tech products start to show up in the later Nancy Drew games, mostly in the form of wireless technology, which makes sense given Nico's area of study. Though Jovic Tech products don't have nearly as strong a hold on the market as Crowmeister, the fact that they were able to break through the market at all given Crowmeister's power is pretty impressive. Next, let's talk about some of the recurring elements of Nancy Drew's personal life, starting with her father, Carson Drew. Carson is a well-respected lawyer who frequently refers Nancy for cases, while he keeps busy with his own work. Throughout much of the series, Nancy will write letters to Carson, keeping him informed of her travels and cases. The first time Nancy actually speaks with Carson is in the 12th game of the series, Secret of the Old Clock. Chronologically, this doesn't really make sense, since this game time travels back to 1930, but if you think of it as a dream, which is how I typically imagine it, then it all checks out. All in all, Nancy actually speaks with her father surprisingly little throughout the series. He plays a much bigger role in the cases you might imagine, Alibi and Ashes and The Silent Spy, both of which are highly personal for Nancy and involve direct threats to her safety and well-being, even more so than her usual mysteries. However, it's clear throughout the series that Nancy and Carson maintain a regular correspondence and spend time together in between cases. Carson is clearly a loving and supportive father and a very handsome golf ball. Oh, yeah, we never actually see what Carson looks like. He is only ever pictured as a golf ball. So, yeah. Moving on, let's talk about the other major parental figure in Nancy's life, Hannah Gruin. The only time Nancy talks to Hannah in the entire Nancy Drew series is in the 3rd game, Message in a Haunted Mansion. Otherwise, Nancy and Hannah correspond via letters and emails, and Hannah sends Nancy a care package when she's arrested in Alibi and Ashes. But once again, we interact surprisingly little with Nancy's primary maternal figure. Which brings up the point of Kate Drew, Nancy's mother, who was killed in the line of duty when Nancy was 10, at least in this Nancy Drew universe. To understand all the lore associated with Nancy's mom, then you need to play The Silent Spy in its entirety. To discuss it here would basically be to sum up the plot of that game. Beyond that, Nancy mentions her mother throughout the series whenever she interacts with a character who has also lost their mother, such as Joy Trent in The Haunted Carousel, Emily Crandall in Secret of the Old Clock, and the Shimizu sisters in Shadow at the Water's Edge. It becomes a running joke throughout the series that Nancy clearly has unresolved trauma surrounding her mother's death, because she tends to be extremely pushy with characters when they refuse to talk about the deaths of their loved ones. It's almost like she copes with her own unanswered questions by attempting to pry the answers out of suspects in similar situations, meaning that she tends to lack some tact where loss is concerned.
You had a guinea pig?
Yes, but it died.
When?
Moving on to the next personal constant in Nancy's life, her friends Bess Marvin and George Fain. Bess and George are cousins from River Heights who are close personal friends with Nancy. They serve as phone friends dozens of times throughout Nancy's career. The first time they're supposed to join Nancy physically in a case is in the 10th game of the series, Secret of Shadow Ranch, but due to plane delays, we never actually see them in-game until some goofy Photoshop pictures at the end that don't show their faces. The first time Nancy is actually joined by one of the cousins is in Legend of the Crystal Skull, where Bess joins Nancy on a trip to New Orleans and actually plays a pretty significant role in solving the mystery. Bess is never physically rendered in this game, so we still don't know what she looks like until Ransom of the Seven Ships, when both Bess and George join in person for the first time. Since Bess is kidnapped in this game, we don't see much of her, but we do spend more one-on-one time with George. The cousins invisibly join Nancy once again in Shadow at the Water's Edge, and physically join in Alibi in Ashes and the Shattered Medallion. Every time Bess and George join a mystery, they have different character models, sometimes to a pretty significant extent. The basic physical features tend to remain the same. Bess is blonde and a little more curvy, George is brunette with shorter hair and a more athletic build. But otherwise they change quite a bit, even down to their facial features. There's no in-game explanation for this, so the only explanation is that characters in the Nancy Drew universe have the ability to slightly morph their outward appearances. No other explanations to be had. Another interesting thing about Bess and George is that they basically fall off the face of the earth after the Shattered Medallion. After being relative constants in each other's lives, they all of a sudden disappear after New Zealand, and we haven't heard from them since. Like, not at all. Instead, a new and pretty unlikely bestie seems to have taken over, Deardra Shannon. Deardra was first introduced as Nancy's one-sided rival in Alibi in Ashes. I say one-sided because Nancy doesn't appear all that threatened by Deardra, but Deardra is 100% extremely threatened by Nancy. She's incredibly jealous of Nancy and intent on making her life miserable, but the two are framed as reluctant frenemies after Nancy proves her innocence. This dynamic continues in The Deadly Device, when Deardra serves as a valuable phone friend and helps Nancy solve the case. Then, Deardra appears in person in the game that shall not be named, Midnight in Salem, and is a huge part of the game. Once again, to further explain their dynamic in that game would be to basically explain the plot of Midnight in Salem, so you'll have to play the game to fully understand the depth of their interaction. However, Deardra didn't make any sort of appearance in Mystery of the Seven Keys, which begs the question of whether or not Deardra will continue to stick around. Has she replaced Bess and George? I, for one, hope not, but it's hard to say. Which brings us to the final personal constants in Nancy's life, Ned Nickerson and Frank and Joe Hardy. I must discuss them at the same time, and you'll soon see why. Ned Nickerson is Nancy's long-term boyfriend and confidant. He's been around as a phone friend since the very first game in the series, Secrets Can Kill, all the way to the most recent game in the series, Mystery of the Seven Keys. He's also the character with the most consistent voice, as he's been played by Scott Carty ever since Treasure in the Royal Tower, following Scott Carty's brief stint as Charlie Murphy in Message in a Haunted Mansion. Despite this consistency, Ned has never once joined Nancy physically in a mystery, at least in a way we can see. In Alibi in Ashes, Ned goes around River Heights and plays a critical role in helping Nancy prove her innocence, but disappears before the end of the game once Nancy is released. Ned and Nancy have a complex relationship, one that I describe in depth in my video on the Nancy Drew love triangle. I'll link that video in a card in the upper corner if you'd like to check it out and learn a ton more about Ned. For the purposes of this video, you need to know that Ned is extremely loyal and has been Nancy's boyfriend from the beginning, but there's also another contestant vying for that title. Frank and Joe Hardy are also amateur detectives just like Nancy. Frank and Joe are brothers and close personal friends of Nancy. Just as with many constants in the series, Frank and Joe make their first appearance as phone friends in the 6th mystery of the series, Secret of the Scarlet Hand. After that, they appear regularly as phone friends, before making their big debut as the first of Nancy's friends to ever appear physically in the series in the 13th game, Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. The Hardy Boys continue to intermittently appear as phone friends for the rest of the series, and again as physical characters in Creature of Kapu Cave and Midnight in Salem. Just like Bess and George, the Hardy Boys look different each time, though the Last Train and Midnight in Salem models are relatively similar, and the Creature of Kapu Cave models are horrifyingly different. Starting in Creature of Kapu Cave and ramping up in The Captive Curse, things start to get a little awkward between Ned, Nancy, and Frank. Again, I cover all this in depth in my Love Triangle video, so feel free to check that out to hear all the drama, as it has become a relative constant in the series, sparking much debate among fellow detectives. Finally, let's cover the last recurring elements of the series, some kooky side characters. First, Punchy Laroo. This one is pretty minor, but very fun if you don't know of it. Once again, in Secret of the Scarlet Hand, Nancy can view several of the museum patrons, one of whom is Punchy Laroo. This name appears later in the series when the owner of Club Michio suggests, or more aptly demands, that Nancy use it as her stage name when she dances at the club. Punchy Laroo is also the name of the voice actress who portrayed Bess Marvin in the final scene. On a similar note, in the final scene, Simone Mueller suggests the stage name of Samantha Quick to Nancy when she asks her if she's ever considered acting. Nancy immediately brushes Simone off, but the name Samantha Quick surfaces again in The Phantom of Venice, when Nancy has to go undercover as an American spy who goes by the name Samantha Quick. Partway through the game, Nancy gets a call from Samantha Quick herself, warning Nancy to never use her name again. This ominous call doesn't seem to have any repercussions, until the silent spy, when Nancy meets the real spy who goes by the alias Samantha Quick, Zoe Wolf. This is a fun full circle moment for a name that has been thrown around since the earliest days of the series. But which name has been thrown around in the series more than any other? Sunny June. Just like most of the things in this video, we first come across the name Sunny June in the 6th game, Secret of the Scarlet Hand. In this game, we learn the basics of the legend of Sunny June. This kooky character is a man of many talents, but he tends to fail to apply his talents to basically any job he will ever have. Sunny is an expert doodler, extremely creative, and believes thoroughly in aliens. He's also terribly disorganized, erratic, and impulsive. More often than not, when Nancy comes across Sunny June, it's because she's taking over for an internship that Sunny just got fired from. Evidence of Sunny appears in Secret of the Scarlet Hand as an intern at Beach Hill, in Danger by Design as a fashion intern for Manette, in Phantom of Venice as a Carnivale apprentice who spoke with Helena Berg, in Ransom of the Seven Ships as a research assistant at the Dread Isle Monkey Research Center, and in Shadow at the Water's Edge as a guest at the Ryokan. In Captive Curse, we find a resume that Sunny submitted to Carl Weschler, where we learn that Sunny has also worked with the Kingston University team in Egypt, the Technology of Tomorrow Today lab, and Paranormal Tours in Salem, Massachusetts. This means that Sunny also preceded Nancy's presence in Tomb of the Lost Queen, The Deadly Device, and Midnight in Salem. In Tomb of the Lost Queen, we speak at length with Jamila about Sunny and his alien appreciation organization, SPIDE. According to Jamila, Sunny fervently believes in the Anunnaki and is a brilliant teacher, even to those who don't actually believe in the Anunnaki. Then, finally, in the 30th game of the series, the Shattered Medallion, Nancy comes face to face with the Sunny June. I'm not going to lie, this reveal is a pretty huge letdown. The lead up to Sunny was so good that meeting him should have been a big event, but it really wasn't. To learn more about the end of Sunny's legacy, you'll have to play the Shattered Medallion. But it's pretty cool how pervasive this one single side character became. And there you have it, fellow detectives. All the Nancy Drew lore you need to know to fully immerse yourself in the Nancy Drew universe. Continuity through the games is one of my favorite things about the series. I love how the universe builds and changes, and how inside jokes and information become a core part of the world building. But what do you think, fellow detectives? What Nancy Drew lore is your favorite? Is there any Nancy Drew lore that I missed? Let a Wizard Kitten know in the comment section down below. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button or tipping me for the video with a super thanks next to the download button right beneath the video. If you would like to come join a fantastic group of fellow detectives at Mystique Manor as a patron for the channel, gain access to exclusive content, and support the making of more content like this, please check out patreon.com/wizardkitten. I also have channel memberships with exclusive badges and emojis to use during streams and in the comment section. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming an official detective or a junior or senior detective with patron benefits, click join next to the subscribe button. Please feel free to follow the channel on Instagram or Discord, linked in the description box down below. And as always, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Cozy Game content. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.